Hi, I'm Jeanne Fiorini. Thanks for being here at the Tarot Tips. Today we're going to talk about the Judgment card. This is the fourth in a series of 4 videos talking about important cards of change in the Tarot's Major Arcana. By the time we get to the Judgment card, which is the next to the last card in the process of development as it's described in the Major Arcana, card 20 out of 21, the World card being the final statement. When we get to the Judgment card, like many cards in tarot, a few things we wonder if we're ready, number one. And secondly, the misconception around the word judgment. I hear a lot of people think that this card is about being judgmental. And that's not really the case. Judgment card in tarot is more like Judgment Day. It's more like, okay, fish or cut bait, as they say in the state of Maine. What are you going to do? Are you in or are you out? It's time for action. So this is a very dynamic card. It's a card of all forces coming together, where we are as a person in our development and where timing is. So if you see a big red cross or an intersection sort of looking image on your Judgment card, that's what that's about. It's like in or out. Personal timing and non-personal timing is coming together here, and it's the moment is here to take action, take what you know and do something about it. So the type of change here is really, I like this a lot. I've personally have a lot of planets in my astrological makeup, which are Librans. So I always like the both and solution. And the Judgment card is a card the type of change that we're looking at here is both fueled by the inner and the outer, where I find myself in my own process with what's the demands of my outer life, that intersection. So it's change that we create. It's change that has a timing component, which is appropriate, and a readiness aspect to it, which is important. And so that brings up the issue when people say, well, I'm not ready. Well, the Judgment card says, yes, you are. And that the timing is good, appropriate, useful, supportive for some sort of action on your part. So the type of change is, it is dynamic, but it's also willful. Our will is important in this change. And this is the first, and really of the 4 cards that we've talked about in this series, the Judgment is the only place where we can exert our will. We can only exert our will in the Tower card after the Tower has had its moment to say whatever it's going to say. We don't have any will in either the Wheel card or the Death card until after the process has moved. So the Judgment really is the place in the tarot where personal will and timing intersect to create a wonderful opportunity for change. The number indication on the Judgment card also is very significant. It's card 20. So 2 and 0 put us down to the number 2. Number 2 is the High Priestess. It also puts us at 11. 1 and 1 is 2. The 11th card is the Justice card. So these 3 cards make an interesting triad. And they're all about knowing. The High Priestess knows but takes no action. She's more like a place of knowing. The Justice, the next increment, you could say, or the next expansion or the next development of this 2 idea of knowing is, okay, I am going to make decisions on what I know. I'm going to have something to say about that. I'm going to make choices based on that. So if anything, the Justice card is the one that might be more, as we colloquially think of, being judgmental. I have an opinion about this. I have a thought about this. This is what I think about this. When we get to the Judgment card, there's the knowing and the thinking and deciding and action. So it's that fiery action that is the next amplification of this idea of knowing. So the high priestess knows but doesn't act. The justice knows and decides. The judgment says, I know, I decide, and now I'm going to act. Very empowered, very important card in personal growth and in the tarot. So what would some examples of this be? Being that it's the next to the last card, almost a concluding kind of card, we would say that, a lot of experience backs up this knowing and this decision. So some examples might be, today is the day I quit smoking. Once you make that decision, you don't look back. That's another aspect of the judgment card that's very empowering. It's like, once the horse is out of the barn, I can't change my mind, because the wheels have been put in motion by my actions. Today's the day I'm getting divorced, or today's the day I'm going to get married, or decide that I will say yes to somebody who's maybe asked me to marry them. Decision sorts of things. Sometimes this is a card of hearing the call of maybe your vocation. Yes, I will become an attorney. Yes, I will become a ballerina, whatever it is. That notion of rightness, and I don't mean right in terms of right or wrong. I mean right in terms of authentic and well-suited, and that there's so much confidence that backs up that knowing that to move forward is almost a no-brainer. You almost cannot take action based on what you know. That's the force and the motivation behind this judgment card. Let me try to think of one other example of a judgment sort of thing. As I'm taping this, it's December, and I'm thinking about the new year, and sometimes people make resolutions, New Year's resolutions. I wouldn't really say that the judgment is about a New Year's resolution, but it's anything that you decide with certainty like that, where you say, okay, enough dilly-dallying, enough procrastinating. This is what has to happen now, okay? Sometimes it's when we decide to retire, okay, by the end of the year, I'm going to be done teaching school, whatever it is. I take action on that. I set the wheels in motion, and off we go. So it's change that's implemented by our own personal will. Very important card. We will go to the tarot table and look at some of the symbols and images on this particular judgment card, the final card in our series of important cards of change in the Major Arcana. Okay, here we have this dynamic judgment card. There are a couple of cards in the Major Arcana that feature angels. This particular, we see an angel in the Lover's card. We see an angel in the Temperance card. Here we see the angel Gabriel with his horn, who can sleep when in other words, be unconscious when Gabriel is blowing his horn. So we see these pairs of male, female, and child. Now the male, female, and child, we may have talked about this in a different tarot tip, speak to the dynamic principle, the receptive principle. These are the opposites of existence. And then the child is the sense of self, or the thing that emerges from the union of those two forces. So we see that those forces are awake. They are looking directly at the angel. In the Rider-Waite version of tarot, this is the only card where all the figures look at the angel. So this is, I get it. I see, I understand what my divinity might be calling me to, what my humanness might be calling me to. So we see this image of integration with this cross here, where the physical, the horizontal line, and the spiritual, the vertical line, create a new entity. So we have opposites coming together here. We have unification happening here. We have integration happening here. We have the spiritual and the physical coming together here. We have the mountains in the background, a kind of classic image there of eternal truths, things that are immovable and pretty much unchangeable. Let's see, what else do we have going on here? We have this notion of timing, of understanding, which amplifies really both parts of the equation. That the heavenly or the spiritual aspect is acknowledged by the human force, that the human force feels connected to the spiritual force. Again, that notion of integration. This card is ruled by Pluto, which has to do with matters of destiny and also things of a transpersonal nature. So the Judgment card indicates that even though we are being authentically personal, when we have such an experience of knowing as this, it does, I like that word, amplify and accentuate our purpose, our authentic sense of self. So there is this sense of divinely inspired here in the Judgment card. How can you make a bad move if judgment is happening in its true time? So it's a calling up card, taking all of your experiences and saying, given X, Y, and Z, everything I know, everything that I understand, and my sense of empowerment, this is the call to action. Wake up call, hearing the call, decision-making time, being responsible for your actions, judgment, taking accountability for what you decide and then what you do about it in the world. Might be a vocational sort of awareness or inspiration. Very strong and empowered card here of knowing the truth of who you are and what you are called to do. So may we all use those cards of change in their right degrees and in their right purposes and in alignment with our authentic truth. Thanks for being here. We will see you next time.